Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and it's time for another professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a super high level match of Terran versus Zerg. Spawning here in the bottom left hand corner of Eastwatch and playing with the red Zerg drones, we have none other than Solar. And its opponents spawning in the opposite corner and playing with the blue Terran SCVs. I'm talking about none other than Maru. Now, I actually remember watching Maru play way back in 2010 when he already managed to qualify for the GSL Code S. I don't actually know exactly how old he was at the time. I think he must have been like 13 or something along those lines. And this man right here was already qualified for the highest level tournament in StarCraft 2 at the time. Now, of course, the game has developed a ton since and the game got significantly more complicated, but Maru has always been around. And in particular, over the last couple of, I would say really like the last 2 months or so, he's been extremely impressive. He's looking very, very dominant. Solar on the other end, of course, also, he's already been around for many, many years at this point. And he's also, once again, almost having a bit of a resurgence, I would say. A lot of players, they are very good for a period of time and then they seem to fall off. And every once in a while, you see their names pop up in tournaments and whatnot. Solar, once again, seems to be on point. He's always been extremely strong. He's had some moments where he was just simply better than everyone else. But right now, he once again is finding a bit of a high point in his career. And it's always really exciting because Solar does come up with some really, really cool builds. So we have to keep an eye out right here on what both of these players are going for. So far, nothing too weird though. We see that hatchery on the low ground right here for Solar, and he's following it up with a gas geyser as well as a spawning pool. This will of course allow him to get metabolic boost out very, very quickly. And most of the time we can sort of guess as to what kind of build order he's gonna go for by checking the amount of workers that he will have in the gas geyser after he mines 100 here in just a little bit. Is he gonna pull any drones out of it? He will indeed pull them out now that he's got 100 gas mined, rather than, well, he's actually going to leave a single one in there, but he is going to go ahead and play a very, very standard Zerg opener there. In the meantime, though, on the other side of the map, we saw that very first Reaper already moving across a single Marine. Also has now been built just in case the Zerg player was going to go for that very quick spawning pool and try to deny that expansion from the low ground there for the Terran player. The Reaper immediately trying to go after the drone there that was happily mining its minerals, but so far, nice deflection here by the Zerg. I would actually be very surprised if Solar ends up losing anything critical here, just because players have been doing this for literally thousands and thousands of matches, just to try and, make it more difficult for their opponent to just simply open up super greedily. That's really the reason why you go for this Reaper. You try to deal damage if your opponent ends up playing a little bit too greedy. And obviously, if your opponent does end up playing really greedy, you can sometimes snatch up a drone kill or two, but most of the time, it's really just meant to keep your opponent on their toes and also for scouting purposes to make sure that everything is as you expect it to be. Maru, now he's gonna shoot away at that Overlord here for a little bit, but I'm sure that Solar will poke back in, maybe on top of this pillar here in just a little bit. Regardless though, he is now getting that 1-1-1 style going once again, so 1 barracks, 1 factory, as well as 1 starport. One of the cool things recently in Terran versus Zerg is that Zerg players have been focusing an insane amount on creep spread. I'm sure that some of you may recall some of the best Zerg players a couple of years ago. In particular, Scarlet was very well known for her insane creep spread. Right now, that's almost become the expected result for a lot of the Terran versus Zerg early game for Zerg players. Zergs have really been focusing a lot on it, and Terran likewise. They have been trying their very hardest to force those creep tumors down once again. And I wouldn't be surprised if Maru is going to continuously snipe those throughout this match, and actually that hurts a lot, right? That actually slows down Solar's creep spread a lot. The first couple of tumors, of course, they can get out of control pretty quickly. If you can contain it right now, it does open up the possibility to go for a bit of a push at the third base of Zerg if the creep is not spread out far enough. So far though, nice little bit of back and forth right here by Maru. He's just simply going to try and deal as much damage here as he can without losing anything critical, forcing a lot of Zerglings out so far as well. And one of these queens is actually starting to run very low. One Hellion though will end up dying there, and while Maru is going to try this back and forth a couple more times, I don't think he's really going to achieve all too much. A Viking now though, already across the map here as well. I do not see that Banshee on the production tab here too, and another one already finished up. That does mean that the cloaking field will not also be ready here for Maru. So he's more than likely gonna try his very best to see if he can deal any kind of harassment damage. Third command center now also being constructed here by our Terran player, so nothing all too crazy so far. Very nice back and forth here, and we'll have to keep an eye out on exactly what it is Maru wants to go for as far as the mid game goes. Some players like to play mech, and yes, it does seem like that is going to be the case in this particular match as well. But Maru, he's always been very well known for playing a bio-based style, but over the last couple of months, mech has really become the new flavor, I suppose. A lot of players have been going for a lot of mech. Now, interestingly enough, no, never mind. He's actually going to follow it up right now with a Raven. I was going to say, he's producing something out of that starport once again. The Viking is just simply roaming around, but Maru has already got quite a lot of units here out of that single starport with the tech lab. Hellions just poking in and out as much as they possibly can, try to see if they once more can potentially snipe one of those tumors. So you can really see the result of that, right? So far, the creep spread is not really that far out just yet here for our red Zerg player. Now, there are a couple of other queens, however, dedicated as well to that spreading of the creep. And in the meantime, 2 Banshees have now gone into the main base. There is a Spore Crawler there available. Actually, a little bit of miscontrol there by Maru. He did not fly perfectly there, actually losing a bunch of HP right there on one of those Banshees. But he does manage to get him out of there, but not with all too many kills. Only a single drone going down so far in the game. And Solar apparently has decided that 6 minutes and 30 seconds is the perfect time to go for a gold. Maru now even going for that double expend as well. Very greedy play here. A single Zergling will likely find out very shortly that that base is going to be taken. In the meantime though, a hatchery here in the center of the map as well for Solar is going to be rather important for the Terran player here to try and force that cancel, because that 4th base sure is very early as well. Looks like the Roaches will be able to force a couple of these units back, but not without actually forcing the cancel right there on the hatchery in the center. And actually, this Zergling, it's scouting out another base. The gold is completely undetected so far. And while Solar does assume that this base is going to be taken at this point in the game, Maru is already starting to get a pretty solid economy. He's now even going, and I really like this actually, he's now even going for the Hyperflight Rotors upgrade, which is an upgrade for the Banshee speed. After Cloak, you can also get their speed upgraded, which allows them to move across the map very, very rapidly. And we've actually been seeing a couple of Terran players going for like a hit squad worth of Banshees. We'll have to keep an eye out on whether or not Maru wants to go for something along those lines as well. But with both Cloak as well as Hyperflight Rotors, they can fly around and dash in and out continuously. Solar though, now already at 7.5 minutes, or I guess 7 minutes and like 45-ish seconds, he's already getting himself a Viper out. Now also transitioning back towards that Roach Hydra Viper style that we saw Zerg players play very often during, like, I would say like a couple of years ago, really. It's been a gold standard for a while, and it's once again finding a bit of a resurgence. Now apparently, Solar finally figured out about this gold base, but Maru has decided that he is gonna be capable of getting some of those greedy mineral incomes. I'm actually quite curious as to why he decided to go with the orbital command there on this base. I would have definitely expected a planetary fortress. But apparently Maru is going to feel confident in his capabilities of just simply holding on to these pretty far apart bases. That's the tricky part about defending this kind of area, right? Both the 3rd and the gold are very far away. So Maru does have to be careful. Still, I love this. Hyperflight Rotors is just about to finish up. Cloak immediately activated to prevent Solar from easily seeing that on the minimap. And it does look like Maru will try to go after the gold base expansion here of our Zerg players. I love it. That's so cool. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to get the kill. Banshees, of course, they deal a heck of a lot of damage. The Hydras are going to try and see if they can deal some damage here as well, but it will force the cancel there on that golden expansion. In the meantime, though, Banshees are going to be able to move over to the main base. Beautiful parasitic bomb there by our Zerg, though, definitely preventing these units from dealing all too much damage, but great splits as well at the same time by our Terran player. Eventually, though, one of the Banshees ends up dying, but I think they did their job very, very nicely. And of course, right, Maru has been buying a lot of time. Now, interestingly enough, look at this. He is adding on 2 more starports. The first 2 that he made both have tech labs on them. He's gonna go for a very Sky Terran-based army. And this is actually very interesting. How many Banshees is that? 7 Banshees at this point in the game. There is a Great Aspire now coming in here as well for Solar. He's got a very solid economy here nonetheless, but Maru definitely is the one that decides the pace at this point, right? There's not a whole lot that Zerk can really do at this moment in the game, just because, well, he's gonna load up a lot of these overlords apparently, just because it always seems like Terran is the one that needs to be aggressive, whereas Zerk is just simply gonna take every single base if they get the option to. Now, once again though, while these overlords were going for a bit of a push out, the Banshees are cloaking once more. They're gonna try and see if they can go after this base here. Once again, at the gold base expansion, there are not even remotely enough Hydralisks available to try and deal the damage here. Apparently though, they might be able to deflect this army for now, but look at this. The amount of damage that Maru is doing with a very small army is actually kind of terrifying. Once again, nice little yank there, killing one of those units, but they got a whole lot of Hydralisks there for their troubles as well. Great Aspire just about to finish up. We now also do see that switch towards a mass Raven-based army. We can talk about that in just a little bit, because I think we're about to actually see a bit of an engagement here between Roach's Hydralisks and I guess 1 or 2 siege tanks. This was played during IEM Katowice, and the thing is that Terran players at that tournament really started making use of the anti-armor missile on those Raven. Now, Blizzard has since announced that they don't really want that to happen. Now, actually, nice little scouting there by our Terran player, focusing on where that Overlord army is going to be located. And once again, now that he knows where it's up, I don't think he can, well, I don't think he can commit there, honestly. It's going to be very painful. At the same time, the Roaches and Hydralisk are going to go after this base over at the 3rd location of the Terran player. There are 3 command centers, but at the same time, the Vikings will now be able to see exactly where all of these overlords are located as well. They are currently flying above dead space, so that means that I think every single last of these will end up dying. Oh my god, that's a massive loss. And wow, indeed, a couple of SCV kills will go down here as well. And apparently, a single one of the command centers was also taken care of. Maru manages to deflect this army here at this point in the game, and he's now also happily expanding once again to more and more economy, still with that Banshee hit squad. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that Blizzard has since announced that they are going to be nerfing the anti-armor missile a little bit. Rather than it, what they proposed is that rather than it dealing 30 damage upon impact to the Zerg army, it's now going to do 5 damage. And instead, they actually also plan on increasing the HP of a Viking just a little bit, so they will, of course, be able to survive a parasitic bomb just a little bit easier. So a little bit of fine-tuning there, but the mass Banshee style, I mean, it's definitely an option right now for our Terran player. Maru, once again, ended up finding a base here of the Zerg player. He does have Cloak available, but I don't know if he's got enough energy here to really do anything. So far, the Banshee hit squads, though, have been very, very annoying here for Zerg, right? Because you gotta keep in mind, at this point in the game, the Zerg army becomes very slow. Usually, a Zerg army becomes rather immobile. You don't really want to overextend if you are a Zerg player at this point in the game. If you do, you may very well end up losing your bases. And if, you know, this continuous threatening of the Banshees just keeps on going, Solar will have a hard time defending the different bases that he's got. Now here we go though, anti-armor missile immediately being used. It will force the split on those Corruptors, but the Corruptors will be taking a lot of additional damage here for a little while longer. Banshee hit squad in the meantime has made their way towards the gold base expansion, but the Brutes are now also dealing the damage here in the center of the map, and Maru apparently is gonna abandon this position as he's already flying away with his army. But at the same time, right, sure, Maru ended up losing one very critical base there in the center. He's also now killed 2 of the bases of our Zerg player here, and one of them is a gold expansion. I would say that's definitely a worthwhile trade. Still though, the Zerg army here in the center of the map gonna continue pushing onwards. A couple of queens now also off creep. They're gonna try and see if they can deal some damage here too. Very nicely done. Once again though, the anti-armor missiles are gonna be critical. Whoa, absolutely shutting down a lot of this Zerg army. They are gonna have a much easier time. Now the Banshees also made their way back home. They're gonna go after all of those queens that are trying desperately to heal up all of those Brute Lords. They will eventually end up dying, but now that there are indeed also Thors out and more Vikings on that production tab, 7 at a time, I think that Solar's army here eventually will be pushed back. Still, there is a lot of Zerg remaining. We do also still see those Corruptors dealing a heck of a lot of damage here while this is all going on. Brootlings now even trying to go after a couple of those SCVs. But with Maru producing this many air units at a time, I can't help but wonder that... Well, there are still a lot of Corruptors here as well, though. Maybe I'm actually calling this one a little bit early. It seems like Solar is really overstaying his welcome, but he's just simply rallying more and more anti-air units here towards this position as well. But here come the Vikings. Anti-armor missile being activated once more on all of those Zerg units. And I think this must be the wake-up call that Solar was waiting for, because there's really no way you can comfortably fight this many Vikings. They are going to be able to deal continuous damage. There are a couple of Vipers now coming in as well, though. They can definitely turn the tide of battle with a well-timed parasitic bomb, dealing a heck of a lot of area of effect damage. There we go. One parasitic bomb immediately going down. Maru just simply microing against that and having no real troubles. But Solar eventually was indeed pushed back without really losing anything super critical here either. And Maru apparently once again is going to continue onwards, expanding towards the corners of the map. This may very well become a game where every single base is going to be mining. I mean, you know, Maru is already trying to get as much gas income here as he can from these outward expansions. Usually, Mech has a very hard time holding on to these kind of bases, right? But I have to say, so far, Maru has done a great job just simply continuously being annoying here. Mech is immobile, but if there's one unit that is not, it's the Banshee. Right, and this just forces Zerg not to really get all too greedy either with these kind of engagements. Now the Banshee, once again, they find a bit of an angle here. They will be able to pick a lot of these drones up with ease. I think they might even just simply go after that Spore Crawler right now. Spore Crawlers burrow quickly, but not quickly enough. 3 will be just enough, and while once again, right, the Hydras are going to be able to make their way over there, I think these Banshees are just simply going to fly away to fight another day. At the same time, a couple of Hellbats have made their way to watch this other outer expansion here of the Zerg player. Really, Maru is abusing the immobility right now of this Zerg-based army. A lot of that supply is caught up in Corruptors as well as Brute Lords and whatnot, and they just simply aren't very good at defending these kinds of aggressions. Really nicely done. The Brutes eventually, they do poke their head in, but the engagement was already gone. Maru now even using... I love this, man. Maru now even using the Banshees here to clear out that creep. Super nicely done. Now, eventually, apparently, these had a bit of a death wish, so, you know, they end up dying there anyway, but they still most definitely paid for themselves, because while this is all going on, Maru has secured another expansion here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, and these become extremely critical. Banshees once again moving out. Hellions once more trying to go for the run-by. This time around just simply going straight through the center of the map, and while indeed the Zerg army was trying their very best to engage to the gold base expansion here of Maru, so far Solar has had a hard time dealing with all of these bits of aggression. I was gonna say, you do not want to fly your Brute Lords out by themselves in the middle of the map, but it looks like they will be supported here in a little bit. Still though, Solar does have a bigger bank here than the Zerg, or than the Terran player rather. Banshees still being a bit of a nuisance, they're picking up a few kills, but as far as total kills go, it's nothing all too crazy just yet. Here we go. Second massive engagement just about to come up. We've seen one so far that wiped out the base here in the center that has since been retaken. I think this time we will definitely see the kill right here on this planetary fortress. Looks like Maru isn't even going to try to bother to defend that. He's actually once again sending out a lot of these Hellions as well as Banshees to just continuously deal damage. It's actually really sick. The amount of harassment here is really getting out of hand. I mean, the Hydras, sure, they managed to pick up a base, but at this moment, Solar must realize as well that his opponent is going to be maxed out, and we all know what happens when a Terran player is maxed out on mech-based units. It's very, very scary. Solid back and forth though, so far. I mean, we see a very standard... Oh man, that Hydralisk. We see a very standard Zerg-based composition here. But I have to say, I love the way that Maru is approaching this, right? He's playing a very immobile army, but he's playing it in a way where it seems like it's just as nimble as a marine-based force. Pretty crazy. Apparently Solar though has realized that he's not gonna engage in that base here at the gold expansion, and once more he wants to go for the one in the center. The anti-armor missiles though, they become absolutely critical here, as well as the parasitic bombs. They just simply deal so much damage. The splash of both of those abilities is gotta be the determining factor here during this engagement. Here we go. Oh my, this is, oh, that was so sick. Look at that. That's one of the reasons why Blizzard looked at that and be like, yo, we're gonna remove that, you know, amount of damage off of these units. Parasitic Bomb, of course, deals 120 damage. A single anti-armor missile deals only 30. But still, it's absolutely menacing. Now, a couple of drones ended up dying there as well to these two Hellions. Apparently, they've done a very good job. Still, the anti-armor missiles are landing everywhere. Corruptors ended up dying here as well with big numbers. And while the planetary fortress in the center of the map has also gone down, I have to say, I think that this is going to be a determining, or rather a very solid lead here for Maru. He's gotten himself a very solid advantage. Now the Hydras, they're going to try and wait for these Vikings to overextend, but they end up doing none of that. Maru, once again, securing another base here. We see Zerk now also mining from these outer expansions. The gold is actually going to be running low, even though it's been under harassment here for a very long time. Both players now, you know, dealing almost even amounts of damage there when it comes to the worker counts. But usually, these kind of moments, they just simply go in favor of the Terran player, just because their army is significantly more cost efficient. Spore crawlers and spine crawlers here being constructed at this newly acquired base for Solar. It did now also get confirmed there by Maru. And Maru is now maxed out. He's even getting some of the infantry weapon upgrades just because he may as well. He's got so much money at this point in the game that he's going to try and see how much damage he can do with those ghosts that he's also now added on. And with this Raven Sky Terran based army, I love this, right? Look at this army. I think he's going to be able to wipe out that base with relative ease, but look at the few amount of siege tanks. Beautiful EMPs once again coming in though. There are still a lot of Zerg units here available. Liberators trying to snipe away and forcing these Hydralists out of their positions. Vikings just simply trying to see if they can clean up the rest of these air units, and the snipes on these ghosts have been absolutely on point. Couple of infestors now also coming out, and it does actually look like there may be enough Zerg available to deal the damage here to this Terran army, but still the reinforcements here for our Terran player in blue are gonna be significantly bigger, and the Banshees, they are still dealing the damage as well, just simply cleaning up the majority of those ground-based units, and Solar taps out, and Maru is the one who obtains the victory in this particular match. I have to say, I really love this though. Usually Mech used to be the super immobile kind of army composition, right? And right now, we see Terran players starting to max out on different kinds of units entirely. It used to be based around the Thor, and then also the siege tank, of course. But, I mean, in this maxed out composition, I think we saw Maru having like 2 or 3 siege tanks here on his opponent's side of the map. That's not something that is very well explored just yet in StarCraft 2. So I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one.